Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. I am your astrologer today. Super stoked to be back to be giving you guys astro weather. This is going to be my weekly video, and as you guys know, at the end of the month I always do the monthly address for next month. So oh my goodness, it's December. It is the end of 2021. It is hard to believe, like, where has the year gone? This video is going to be jam-packed with the most important transits that you need to know for the month of December. If you stay tuned until the end of the video, I am going to pull tarot cards for each and every one of the 12 signs and give you insight as to what December has in store for your sign, so make sure you listen for that. We're going to go over a little bit just what I find the most prominent transits for the month are. And there are a lot of them. I feel like it's not just because it's eclipse season. We've got a lot of other things that are kind of happening. Neptune's going to go direct. We're going to have a Venus retrograde. Mercury moves into shadow. We have mutable squares. It's just a very busy month. December is like the month that just keeps on giving. So let's kind of talk about the most important transits just to kind of start off with. As you guys know, I do these weekly videos every week, so you're going to get insight. We're going to dive deeper week by week into some of these aspects, including the impending solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Should be having that video out for you guys soon. But the solar eclipse in Sag is essentially going to be a new moon on steroids. So this is going to be coming in on the 4th of the month. So solar eclipses generally are very action-packed, and it is the last of series of eclipses that we've had in Sagittarius and Gemini. So this is the final one that we've had. It is going to set the stage for what's going to be the better part of another 6-month cycle revolving around Sagittarian topics. I feel pretty good about this eclipse. It's a lot more positive and optimistic, being in the sign of Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. And it's got some pretty nice aspects, so we'll look at that. But essentially, new moon solar eclipses are new moons on steroids. So this particular eclipse is going to be in close proximity to Mercury in Sag, and it's going to have some very positive aspects both to Saturn and to Chiron. So I'm looking forward to what this eclipse has in store for us. I'm super stoked also because I just feel like at least the first half of December, it feels like things are progressively moving forward, and there's a lot of momentum and optimism and almost like excitement revolving around change. The second half of December and then into the new year is a completely different story. So make the most of the first half of the month if at all possible, and stay tuned for my Sagittarius eclipse video that's going to be coming, and I'll break it down very specifically per aspects. Secondly, we've got a Venus retrograde that is going to be starting in Capricorn, and that Venus retrograde is going to be starting somewhere around the 19th of December. This is not your stereotypical Venus retrograde. I cannot reiterate this enough. Traditionally, we usually see Venus spend maybe about, anywhere from 20 to 25 days in a given sign in transit. Because Venus is going to slow down, go retrograde, and then go direct, and then move forward, Venus is going to spend the better part of 4 months in the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. It's ruled by Saturn. It's about longevity, commitment, long-term planning, traditions, and it is going to be turning retrograde conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. So Venus retrograde in itself is already kind of like a Plutonian theme, right? Because it's like that 40 days of Venus being reborn. She goes to the underworld, she comes back, and there is this sense of refreshing Venus topics, whether it's relationships or the way that we decorate our wardrobe or our bodies or even our homes. Under the guise of Capricorn, it's going to have this tinge of reevaluating tradition, reevaluating relationships, values, long-standing values, and also I think for all of the signs, it's going to be a really pivotal moment where there is a huge shift, and with conjunctions to Pluto, we have the opportunity to dig deep and really get to the core of issues or wounds or fears, and have the ability to transform. So one thing I would say to you is look at where Capricorn is in your natal horoscope. It's very important for you to take a look there because Venus will go retrograde and do her thing. So if you are a natal Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, this is going to be particularly beneficial for you. I feel like everybody's going to be affected by this. It's probably going to be the most challenging for cardinal signs. So Aries and Libras and Cancers and Capricorns, you guys are going to be the ones experiencing squares or conjunctions. So especially if you are a cardinal rising, it's going to be happening in an angular house, and it's definitely going to get a lot of things moving and shaken. So stay tuned for that video. We'll be talking more about that. The usual rules apply in a Venus retrograde, just for those of you guys who are kind of like astrology newbies, because Venus does rule aesthetics, beauty, relationships, commitments, money. Sometimes it even has a little bit to do with business, especially under the sign of Capricorn. You know, one thing I would say to you guys is retrogrades are time to revisit, review, rework. It's not necessarily a time to run out, get bangs, pierce your nose, put your boyfriend's name tattooed on your ass. Like, these are not things that you generally want to do during a Venus retrograde. However, more people, I think, are going to be feeling the need to rebel and do something different, or a little bit more scary or passionate because of the conjunctions to Pluto. So on one hand, Pluto can be healing and transformative. The other side of Pluto is like, you know, throwing on the leather jacket and kind of being a little bit more of like a badass than you're used to being, only to wake up 3 months later and go, oh my God, I wish I never bought that whole wardrobe. I wish I never got that tattoo. So those of you guys who are cardinal risings, those of you guys who are Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Venus, please hear me on this. Don't go ham. We want to do things that are going to be more temporary. It's one thing to go back, right? To go back and tweak something, fix something, make a change. Like if you painted your house and you didn't like it, you can use this opportunity to go back, repaint, rework something, tweak something. Same things with like other creative projects or anything that's going to be more self-expressive, right? The darker side of Venus retrograde can be definitely, with the conjunctions to Pluto, a little obsessive, a little more challenging in like letting old relationship issues die off. It can bring about obsessive tendencies. It can bring about, especially if there's hard angles in your chart with this Venus retrograde, people who are like stalking or kind of creepy or creeping on your stuff. So it's really going to depend on your specific chart. So like I said, stay tuned for that video. I'll talk more about that, but use the Venus retrograde to reevaluate, rework, reimagine what you love, right? What you're passionate about, especially because that Venus-Pluto conjunction is very passionate. It's very sexual. It's almost a little dark and a little taboo. So we can be finding that the days where Pluto and Venus are getting ready to kiss may bring up these themes. So we want to keep things a little bit lighter, a little bit more open. We want to be aware of psychological triggers or traumas that come up because it does want to be acknowledged. It does want to be healed. And this is going to be a Venus retrograde for the books, because eventually when Venus does ultimately go direct, we are also going to have Mercury in Capricorn, Mars in Capricorn, and Mars and Venus, the star-crossed lovers, will move together February and March of 2022, where there is this big pivotal shift. I'm loving the astrology at the beginning of March. I'll talk about that more as we get closer, but there is something that is being reworked. Mercury is going to move into shadow. It's crazy that I was like doing my notes looking at this and I'm like, wait, what? Didn't we just come on from Mercury retrograde? In the new year, Mercury will retrograde back from Aquarius into the sign of Capricorn. Lots of retrogrades in Capricorn, right? We've got Venus, we've got Mercury. Like I said, Mars will move through there. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit about the shadow and when to kind of pay attention when the shadow is going to start kind of peaking up. And last but not least, we've got the return of the mutable squares. It is the final weeks that we are seeing the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius. These two mutable signs have really taught us what it means to check our sources, question our ideas, learn to see the other side of perhaps a situation or a debate, and really open our minds to being more aware of what's going on, not just globally, but what's going on locally, learning how to communicate and exchange. So it's a combination between, I think, the eclipse that's happening in Sagittarius, which is going to bring up all of these kind of mutable Sagittarian, bigger picture, travel related, legal related ideas. And the fact that planets are going to move to square each other, or square mutable signs. So the sun will be moving through Sagittarius, Mercury is moving through Sagittarius. These two planets are going to come into a square with Neptune. So we're going to see return of like issues with clarity, distortion, things that are fuzzy, unclear, perhaps even misleading. And Neptune will be going direct. So what's different about these squares is that Mercury and I think the sun coming into a square with Neptune that's direct is going to be extra distorted. I think like the telephone game, you know, like when you were little kids and you tell the story to somebody who tells it to somebody who tells it to somebody. And by the time it comes back, it's a completely different story. It's like there's nothing that is even remotely close to what you were originally kind of told. That's how I perceive squares to Neptune. So we want to watch for those days because there can be confusion, miscommunication, there can be cloudiness, there can be intentional deceit and misleading that are going on during those times. So those are the biggest themes that I'm seeing for the month of December. One thing I want to pull up really quick is I want to see when does Mercury go into shadow, because that's one thing that I just do not have. So give me just a second here. So it looks like Mercury will drop back down to 24 degrees. So when Mercury hits 24 degrees of Capricorn, that will be shadow. And you know what? I think it's going to be at the end of the month. So just making a mental note, it'll be right around the 28th through the 30th. So that'll be when the shadow happens. It's later in the month. All right, so let's go ahead and break this down and look at what's going on day by day in the month of December of 2021. So on the first of the month, Neptune goes direct in Pisces. I kind of want to say yay, but I'm not going to say yay because I'm not totally thrilled about Neptune going direct. But it is what it is. The show has to go on. I think ultimately it's going to be more so beneficial, especially next year, looking at Jupiter ingressing back into Pisces. One thing I would say about Neptune going direct with all other outer planets, like when Neptune or maybe like Pluto or Uranus go direct, we don't always feel it. It can be something that takes triggers from outer planets to kind of activate. But what's interesting is that the day it goes direct, Venus is in a sextile to Neptune. So that kind of yummy, comfortable, playful aspect that we see between Venus and Neptune is very creative. It's dreamy, it's whimsical. And when you have planets and earth and water working together, it makes mud. So on the first of the month, we see not only Venus makes a sextile to Neptune, but we also see Mars, and later on the moon will make a trine to Neptune. Super emotional, very watery. I find that it can be really great for intuitive stuff, healing, you know, anything therapeutic, working with water, photography, anything visual, visualizing your goals, right? Because what I love about aspects between Capricorn and Neptune, if I remember correctly, I think it's, is it Caroline Casey? I think she said something about like, you know, Neptune laying the tracks for, you know, any planets in Capricorn to, you know, ride the imagination train to what we are imagining. I might have botched that a little bit, but if you've heard her lecture, she talks a lot about the aspects that we've seen in recent years between Capricorn and planets in Pisces, and how Capricorn can be very realistic, very grounded. It's the highest peak of the mountain, conjunction gives us the vantage point that we need to be able to bring everything together. So what's so amazing about this energy is that even though Venus is getting close to Pluto, it's making that sextile to Neptune, and it's giving us the opportunity to become acutely aware of something, like laser focused, deep, obsessive, particularly focused on something, so we can either come into our wildest dreams or what we've been manifesting or what we've been visualizing or dreaming about. Or on the flip side, if it's not real, because Capricorn says, make it real, Neptune's gonna go, and we're dissolving this. It's like literally pouring water like on salt and just seeing everything just kind of dissolve, right? So I'm loving this energy between Capricorn and Neptune at the beginning of the month. Now, when a planet goes direct, regardless of where it is in terms of our solar system, it is going to pick up speed. It's going to pick up momentum. So it's going to sit at 20 degrees for a little while. It's going to start kind of amping up. In the midst of the Venus retrograde, Venus will retrograde between 26 and I think about 11 degrees. So it's going to spend quite a while in a sextile between planets in Capricorn and planets in Pisces, Neptune. So I'm kind of digging it. It works for me. Then on the 4th of the month, we see that this is when we have the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius. It's at 12 degrees, also kind of Piscean when you think about it. It's what's spiritual, what's going on globally, what's being unveiled, what's being shown, what's being seen. Guys, I can't tell you this enough, okay? Really, once we get into post-eclipse, December is just going to just keep on keeping on like a train, especially when we see Mars move into Sagittarius. But the sun, the moon conjunction, it's obviously a new moon, so it's great for setting intentions, and it's conjunct Mercury. So at the time, all of these planets are making these really yummy aspects to Saturn. They're sextiling, so there's something supportive going on. I've said this in previous videos, and it's certainly played out over the last week or two. We are going to hear so much more about travel limitations, air limitations, limitations in terms of where we can visit or cannot visit, where we can and cannot roam. I cannot wait until Jupiter gets out of Aquarius, because I think on one hand there is going to be more shifts and opening in the beginning of the year in terms of travel, but I also feel like there's going to be a couple things that are going to get beat up in the midst of the sun, Mercury, and also the moon coming into a square with Neptune. So that eclipse is going to put travel on the map in a sense, or at least in the news. But it's also going to bring about a lot of confusion, chaos, doubts, fears revolving around travel. So that's going to be something that's going to happen. As I'm recording this, it is the end of November. It's the 28th. So in the last couple of days, we're hearing more coming out about this new virus that's apparently coming out of South Africa. I feel like that this is definitely very much connected to the eclipse and how it's going to affect our ability to go places, and not just globally, it can be locally as well. So I'll do a little bit more about that in the next couple of days as we get closer to the eclipse. Watch the news, watch headlines, watch what's coming out, because it's going to be very important. And when Mars comes and crosses these degrees and activates these degrees, we are going to see something ramp up. Unfortunately, I feel like it's more likely to be under the guise of international conflict, perhaps rising tension, dare I even say kind of war energy or friction revolving around combat or conflict. And I say this because the Mars will conjunct the South Node, and then it will activate the eclipse points. So we have to wait and see what happens later in the month. Obviously, we're holding space if that doesn't happen, but whenever Mars is conjunct the South Node, especially when it's in Sagittarius, we are going to see international tensions kind of arise, and perhaps even something that is connected to terrorism. So be mindful when you're moving throughout the end of the month, especially around New Year's, especially when you're out in large crowds. It's really important to pay attention, especially if you're living in cities or like metropolitan areas, okay? On the 6th of the month, we are going to see Mars in Scorpio, sextile Pluto in Capricorn. Let me tell you something. Mars and Pluto are very similar, right? These are both the planets that rule Scorpio. They're very much about controlled power, focus when they're in the signs of Scorpio and Capricorn. On this day, this sextile is going to activate something that's serious. It's about putting something into motion, getting something moving. When Mars and Venus sextile each other, the star-crossed lovers are working together, and there's almost like this power-up that's happening where it's in preparation for some massive change that's happening under the sign of Capricorn. So we've got lots of support coming from Mars here. And whenever you see Mars sextile Pluto, it's like laser hyper-focused, intensity, passion. It can also be a lot about uncovering, like digging and getting to the core of something, or unveiling something, right? Notice that Mars is about a degree away from the eclipse polarity that we had, that eclipse in Taurus just recently on the 19th of November. So this is going to also be a very action-packed period of time because it's getting highlighted, both because of that degree, but also because Mars is moving into a square with Jupiter in Aquarius. Mars square Jupiter is inflated situations, things that pop, heat, things that are sharp, things that move quickly. So we want to pay attention to the events that are happening just shortly after the eclipse. On the 7th of the month, we're going to see that Mercury in Sag moves to square Neptune in Pisces. So I want you guys to really hear me on this because you're not going to hear very clearly during this point in the month. Mercury is the messenger. It's the radio. It's the news. It's everything that's coming in newspapers or anything that's coming on social media. Mercury in Sag is majorly inflated. I love you, natal Mercury in Sagittarius. You guys tell awesome stories, wild tales. You're amazing authors, writers, and publishers. But when it comes to a square to Neptune, it makes me feel like there can be a sense of people adding fuel to the fire, right? And creating hysteria, or intentionally misrepresenting something, or altering something, or moving the facts around a little bit. So I want you guys to watch for this. This day also the moon will conjunct Saturn. So collectively there's something that's going to come up where we almost feel like something's throwing the brakes on and going, you can't do this. Here's the reason why you can't do this. And the reason is probably going to be bullshit. There's going to be a little bit of like manipulating the story to get people to go with the status quo. And I feel like we will see this also when the moon moves into Pisces in the following next couple days. On the 8th of the month, we see that Mars in Scorpio finally moves to square Jupiter. This will be an exact square. The positive side is later in the day, we are going to see the moon come into a conjunction with Jupiter. So that moon Jupiter is like the silver lining. That's like, we had the tiff, we had the conflict, we cut off the relationship, we told that person no, we stopped the bad habit, and here's why. There is a bigger reason or a bigger purpose. Likely because the moon will conjunct Jupiter and square Mars, collectively we are going to see lots of angry people, people who are not thrilled about what they're being told. My perspective on this is that there's been a lot of goalposts that keep moving. It's like, if you do this and if you do this and you do this, then you can spend the holidays with your family. You can get on a plane. You can go here. You can do that. And likely what we're going to be finding out somewhere around mid-December is that when it comes to travel, organization, coming together with people, being able to be among groups and friends, all these Aquarius things, we're going to find that there is another step. There is another requirement. So I want you guys to watch for that because that's likely to be coming mid-month. And when Mars comes into a square with the transit moon and Jupiter, you're going to see some inflated reactions. People are going to blow up a little bit. Certainly not the easiest day to have confrontations, deal with things, have conflicts. You may want to wait at least until maybe we get the moon into Pisces, so at least it can come into a trine, and it's going to be able to be like a much more emotional, kind of sympathetic, understanding, I really hate to do this, but type of energy. If you're doing it on the 8th, it's going to be a little bit combative. On the 11th of the month, then we see that Venus in Capricorn conjuncts Pluto in Capricorn. So this is an important day to watch, guys, okay? Because this is the first conjunction to Pluto. We will have another conjunction to Pluto once it retrogrades. And there's going to be 3. It hits it once, it retrogrades, it hits it again, and then it's going to move forward. So this is the first chapter of the Venus retrograde story. There's something happening here. On one hand, Venus-Pluto is insanely beautiful, very attractive, insane wealth and power, and the opportunity to really build something of substantial value, right? Pluto wants to dig deep. So when I think about the sign of Capricorn, I think about something going on with diamonds, coal, oil, gasoline, anything pertaining to government spending, finances, some significant shift revolving around generals maybe, or women in power, women who are standing up, who are kind of getting sick of the bullshit. I think everybody's sick of the bullshit, but Venus is a woman. The positive side of this is that this particular conjunction does trine that 26, 27 degree that we had of Taurus. So it's reactivating that eclipse time and time again. Needless to say, those of you guys who have any cardinal placements between about, let's say, 23 and 27 degrees of the cardinal signs, you are going to feel this the most, because it will either be a conjunction if you're Capricorn, or it'll be a square if you're all the other cardinal signs. Earth signs will do well with this conjunction. Water signs will do well with this conjunction. Air and fire, it's just depending on if it hits other planets in your chart. This is something that's definitely going to affect the cardinal signs and earth and water signs a little bit more. So watch for what happens this day. I also noticed that Mercury in Sagittarius forms a sextile with Jupiter in Aquarius. Positive news, big news, something's happening. We've moved out of the square with Neptune, thankfully. We do see that the square is with the moon, but it's trining Mars. So it's releasing something. When we think of Pisces, it's the 12th house of the zodiac. So something's coming to a close. And Venus, Pluto, it's like, this is how I've thought about this a lot the last week, and the conclusion that I've come to is that when you really love something, and it doesn't matter if it's a chocolate cake or if it's a dog or if it's a relationship, really loving something is also about this acute awareness that inevitably everything that we love does come to an end at some point. It does fade, it does transition, it does die, right? So whether you're in a relationship with somebody for 60 years and your partner transitions, whether it's that dog or that cat that you love and you get them as a puppy, knowing that at some time down the road, you're gonna have to make the difficult, decision to know when to kind of help them transition or let them go. When you have children, knowing that eventually they're going to grow up, they're going to kind of fly the nest. These themes, right? That we love something so intensely, and part of loving something is knowing that we have appreciation for having it when we have it, because somewhere down the line, we're going to have to let it go. That's so Venus-Pluto. It's so, I don't know, it's just, it really reminds us to be present, and to be present in the here and now, and not get entirely too caught up in forgetting that, we are not eternal, at least not yet, right? So Venus-Pluto can bring these themes of either extreme heartbreak, extreme grief, loss, sometimes even self-sacrifice, knowing that to really love something, you have to let it go. So you guys will see these themes that are going to start coming up right around this time on the 11th. On the 12th of the month, the Sun in Sag moves to square Neptune in Pisces. And this is where our perception is off. And remember, guys, mutable signs deal with changing energies, things that fade, they transition, they're making way for the cardinal energies to come in. So I wonder if the Sun square Neptune is going to be us looking at things and kind of going like, oh, okay, well, maybe we're not coming out of the lockdowns, or maybe we're not going to travel as easily as we thought, or there's something like that, right? Sun square Neptune can always represent a little bit of a blind spot that can become highlighted. On the flip side, Sun square Neptune can make us more emotional, sensitive, porous, aware, empathic, and aware of where we, especially in Sag, need to get to the higher moral ground in order to be able to remedy a situation. So there can be like some sense of self-sacrifice or some sense of wanting to give back or wanting to do something to help other people or who are in need. I want you guys to think about the bigger picture and the right thing to do somewhere around mid-month. On the 13th, Mars enters Sagittarius. So it gets feisty, spicy, excited to move around. Generally, when Mars is in Sag, we see a lot more themes revolving around transportation, especially foreign travel, airplanes, things that pertain to just some kind of movement that's happening. Mars is about movement. It's about passion, energy, vitality. But it also can be about anger, it can be about war, it can be about conflict. So this is the time that I'm really honing in on as we see Mars move into Sag, which is usually pretty spicy, but it immediately comes into a conjunction with the South Node. So it's a loss or a loss of power. Karmic situations that deal perhaps with conflicts or war or some kind of deployment that's going on in a foreign country. I really genuinely think that this is going to happen. I don't like saying that, but that's the feeling that I'm going to be getting. Be mindful if you are traveling internationally or anything pertaining to air travel, things like that. We're going to see some kind of big event. I also feel like once the South Node Mars conjunction is complete, which is not going to be until closer to the 16th, we see it go through the other eclipse points that we had in Sagittarius. So it may take until the second half of December to really fully play out. Now, on the 18th of the month, we see a full moon in Gemini, and that is going to be right around 27 degrees. So full moon's in Gemini and it's in a Gemini degree. Notice that it's also at a 27. So it's the similar energy that we had with the last eclipse. So it is going to bring up lots of information, exchanges of information, stuff pertaining to new headlines, news all over the place. And it is going to be in a loose square to Neptune. So once again, a lot of questioning the narrative. Am I hearing this right? Is this true? Are these true facts? Are we seeing that there's only bits and pieces of information that are being put out? Is this correct, right? This is the one thing that we want to look for. I'll do a video on this as we get closer to that later in the month and talk about how it's going to affect all of the 12 signs. On the 19th of the month, Venus goes retrograde, starting her 40-day period of going back to hell, hanging out with Pluto, doing her thing, and returning only to be reborn. It's going to be some time before we see Venus that's going to move into a much more kind of pleasurable sign. So this is where if we have been delaying things, and I think back to what I was telling you guys during like the Mercury retrograde in Libra, when the Sun and Mars and Mercury were all squaring Pluto, there was some sense of conflict. It was like the relationship where you kept telling somebody, if this doesn't change, I'm out. Or if this job doesn't get better, if I don't get a raise, I'm out. Something like this is going to finally hit home. And once again, this is going to be particularly intense for all of the cardinal signs. The same day that we see that this retrograde happens, the Sun in Sagittarius sextiles Jupiter in Aquarius. That's like the saving grace here. So there's something that's coming to an end, right? We've got the Sun and also Jupiter kind of in the final degrees of their sign. And the Sun sextile Jupiter can represent this sense of, okay, there's a silver lining, I'm optimistic, I'm learning something, there's a bigger meaning here, this is the direction and where we're going, really orchestrating change. So that's the positive thing. Same day, Chiron in Aries goes direct and is now going to be moving forward from 8 degrees of Aries on. So this is interesting too, because we've got Mercury in a square to Chiron this day. The Sun's getting ready to go into Capricorn. So when Chiron goes direct, we're now moving out of like this like hermit mode where we've been in really intense self-focused healing. Now we kind of start to kind of see, okay, of all the work that we've been doing, let's see how we're going to move out in the world. Let's see how we're going to be doing since we've been really focusing on healing our own wounds, whether that's physically or emotionally or anything revolving around the pain of feeling alone or isolated. If you're anywhere, if you have any planets in Aries within the first 8 degrees, you know exactly what I'm talking about, or maybe even closer to 12 degrees, I think. So it's been hovering within those first degrees for the better part of like the last year or two. All right, so healing moves forward. Then on the 21st of the month, we've got the sun entering Capricorn. So to all of my early, or I guess mid-December Capricorns, happy birthday to you. This is what we call the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's getting a little chilly in these parts. Those of you guys who are in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying your weather. It's gonna be a cold winter for parts of us up here, just with having Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius and this retrograde that's gonna be in Capricorn. I expect it to be quite dry and chilly. But winter solstice is going to be the darkest night of the year. So those of you guys who are super witchy, now is the time to do all of your work. I look at Venus going retrograde. I can't wait for this period. I'm super stoked. It's like, I'm going to make my Yule logs. I'm going to do all of my crystal scrying. I'm going to do all of my mediumship stuff. We talk about the veil being very thin during like October and November. But guys, when Venus is conjunct Pluto, when the Sun and Mercury are in Capricorn, awesome time to get out your bones, do your spirit offerings, work with ancestors, sit, set up all of your ancestral altars. Like, this is such a magical time. I'm really digging this, and it's going to give us the opportunity to really connect with the spirit realm if that's something that you're into, especially ancestral stuff or mediumship stuff. It's going to be very much highlighted during this. So now that we're coming into the winter solstice, it's only going to get lighter from here, right? When we think about it. So this is the darkest night of the year. So sitting, holding space, reflecting, and really kind of getting ready to welcome back the sun ultimately when we have the spring equinox in 2022. And it is going to be a big one because of some of the aspects that we are having then. I'm predicting that the spring of 2022 is almost like when the clouds part and the sun comes out. Things are definitely going to feel a little bit, I think, easier in some regards, but we'll get into that as we get closer to the new year. On the 24th of the month, we have Jupiter in Aquarius moving into a square with Uranus in Taurus. So, excuse me, that's not Jupiter moving into a square, it's Saturn moving into a square. So Saturn in Aquarius, we've seen this square happen twice already this year. It happened in February, and I believe it happened in June. So when Saturn squares off with Uranus, it's almost like we're reevaluating the old versus the new, right? Do we do it this way, and do we honor how we've done things traditionally, Saturn, or do we implicate and kind of bring in more Uranian energy and go, this isn't working, let's just throw a bomb into this and let's just try something completely off the wall and very different. If you look back on what happened in February and June, there were huge radical changes in trading in the markets. We saw the Robin Hood stuff. We've seen the rise of cryptocurrency, huge changes going on also politically. I think the third hit is going to be the hardest. That's just my opinion. And it's just ironic that it's happening right around Christmas time. So for some people, it's going to be complete new traditions. We may find that we're not always hanging out with the same family members we're hanging out with. Maybe we're seeing friends. Maybe we're opting to start our new traditions, not go back home and visit family. Maybe there are some kind of mandates or political things that are being put out there that's actually telling us that we cannot connect with certain people. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I just know that this last final square, especially at an 11 degrees, is going to pack a major punch. So be mindful that it's not just like it's the holidays and you're hanging out with your in-laws and like people are being shitty. It's the Venus retrograde and it's the Uranus square Saturn. So may not want to leave your punk little brother in the room with grandpa and let them talk about politics, because somebody's going to get beat up most likely with this square. So watch for things suddenly changing, innovations, and really seeing what the final square is going to give us. To me, it's like fireworks. I've said all along that everything was the lead up to this particular transit, which was then going to set off 2022 and start a completely new way of life. I mean, it's if those of you guys who have looked at the astrology of 2022, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So then we've got on the 25th, Venus will retrograde and conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Merry Christmas, right? For some people, the Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto can be extreme passionate love and insane gifts. Like all the Capricorns out there are like, yeah, I'm gonna get a car, I'm gonna like go to Aspen and go skiing, right? It's the big holiday bonus. And retrogrades are things that are karmic in nature. So it's things that come back to you. So on one hand, it can be that you get that review at work and you find out, you didn't do as well as you thought you were going to do and you're denied that. On the flip side, it can be like the ex that calls you and is like, I never got over you. Can we spend Christmas together, right? That's very Venus retrograde. But with the conjunction to Pluto, it can be also power struggles, power plays, lots of conflicts revolving around wanting to one-up each other. So that's the one thing that you really want to look for. I feel like the darker side of Pluto, and I have to bring this up, can definitely be abusive, intense, jealous, possessive, actually kind of scary or even, not so safe. So one thing that I've noticed just studying retrograde charts is that I've noticed, especially people who go missing or people who are attacked or raped, that seems to be a theme. We will see it happening more likely, or people being abducted or being abused during retrograde cycles. So I'm not just saying that. It's something that I've seen studying charts of missing people for years. So on the flip side, I kind of feel like this is also like an acute awareness that some of these things may come up during the holidays. So if you are somebody who is getting a hunch that there's like a situation like that going on in a household or with family, or you feel the need to reach out and ask if somebody's okay, do so. Your intuition will be very, very kind of switched on because of the conjunction to Pluto. And Capricorn rules people who are in government. Capricorn rules people who are also in uniform. So one other thing that I kind of touched on, I haven't done my Venus retrograde video yet, but I feel like there's going to be some huge demonstration, some huge movement. It can be some kind of protest. It can be some kind of group that's getting together, and it can be police officers, firemen. It can be people who are in government. It can be some huge shift that happens where they're making a statement. Equally, it can be like mailmen, it could be Amazon workers. Anybody who's wearing a uniform is likely gonna go, we're sick of this shit, we're not doing it anymore, we're taking a stand. And it's gonna be right around Christmas. On the other hand, this is also about money and economics, and I think the realization that maybe we're not spending as much money as we thought we were going to be spending over the holidays this year. We spent 2 years in a hole because of the pandemic. We might find that major companies are reporting lower profits than usual. We may also see major, large corporations go under, go bankrupt, and have massive layoffs. So for that to be happening right around Christmas is very unfortunate. But I'm just letting you guys know this is what the astrology is saying is going to potentially happen. So be aware, be prepared. On the 26th of the month, Mercury in Capricorn forms a sextile with Neptune in Pisces. So, intuitive messages, a great day to break out your tarot cards, your pendulum, to be looking at your oracle cards, astrology, anything that is going to help us really tune into something that's going on spiritually within the spiritual realm. We may just notice that we're just picking up on things. You might have your higher self be like, take a left, not a right, or this person's not really being completely forthcoming, or there's something here where if you're really vibrationally in check and aware, you're going to be able to kind of receive the subtle messages that are coming in from Mercury. Meditation helps, sleep helps. It might bring about some interesting dreams. That's something else that might happen as well. On the 28th of the month, and this is when we start to see that Mercury is getting into the shadow. So here is your heads up, here is your warning. Because I know a bunch of people are going to comment, they're going to send me messages, they're going to go, what the hell is going on? Is it Mercury retrograde? No, it's a shit show. It's a Venus retrograde, conjunct Pluto, right? And Mercury, and then Mercury comes into shadow, that there's some big conversation happening. I think it's going to have to do with government spending. I think that the shit's hitting the fan and we're getting ready to come into America's Pluto return, and everybody's going to find out at the end of 2020 that we're bankrupt. And it's more than just the traditional, oh, we're not passing, this spending bill or this or that. I think we're also probably going to find out, thanks to Pluto and Mercury dancing together, where our tax dollars are really going. how the hell are we going to be able to afford this insane possible passing of this infrastructure bill that's going to be going on in the United States? Do we have the money for it? Is inflation through the roof? If you guys haven't seen my Pluto return video, go and check it out. I'm going to keep putting that out there. I'm going to come back and probably do another video in the next month to follow up, because I know some of these things are coming. And it's crazy to me, having listened to the news recently, where like all these economists are like, we didn't see inflation coming. Really? Like, you could have had somebody with like a 10th grade, you know, like math capability to see that if we're just printing money, there's no way that we're going to be able to continue this whole scheme that's going on and continue to be a country that is financially on the map, right? So we're going to see lots of stuff come about the United States and our spending, and whether or not realistically we can maintain the way that we have been going. On the 28th, we also see that Jupiter enters Pisces again. So it entered Pisces, I believe it was like April, May of 2021. It was there briefly, and then it retrograded back into the sign of Aquarius. Jupiter loves being in Pisces. I'm really excited to see what happens with Jupiter going back into Pisces and next year coming into a conjunction with Neptune. It's going to be great for spirituality. It's going to be great for intuitive stuff, psychic healing, taking better care of the oceans, becoming more aware of mental health and how that affects physical health. I do think we're going to see some like magnification of fear-mongering revolving around viruses. Certainly Neptune rules viruses, so Jupiter going into Neptune and coming into conjunction can certainly bring about an even bigger wave globally of people getting super freaked out and concerned about the virus. However, Neptune is spiritual. So I think we're also going to see a lot of people turning more to taking better care of their mental health, new studies revolving around pharmaceutical drugs, stuff that helps improve sleep, mental emotional disorders, and meditation, vibrations. It's going to become a thing. When Jupiter conjuncts Neptune, like crazy gets crazier, right? Super crazy religious people become even more attached to their beliefs. Same thing with the spiritual community. So you want to be careful of like whose advice you're buying, what you're believing, taking time for isolation, reflecting, asking yourself, is this my belief? Does this align with me? The need to consciously go and almost like do like the hermit card to reflect and take time before coming back is going to be a necessary process for us to all collectively move forward. So we're not just constantly in some kind of like hysteria or fear or like lockdown state, right? So I'll talk more about that as Jupiter goes back into Pisces probably in the next month or two. And Jupiter will stay in Pisces until spring of 2022 because at some point next year we are going to see that Jupiter is just going to blaze through the sign of Pisces and dip into Aries and start a whole new Jupiter cycle. That's going to be happening sometime in May of 2022. So we've got a solid 5 months, 5-6 months that we're going to see Jupiter go through Pisces. So I'm very excited to see that. I'm very excited. I'm hoping, I keep saying, I'm like, I hope they find Atlantis. That's the one thing I keep thinking about. Ever since I was little, I'm like, when is this going to happen? Maybe it'll happen with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. We'll see. On the 29th of the month, we see that Mercury is conjunct Venus retrograde in Capricorn. This is a day to watch because if you hadn't already gotten bitch slapped by Venus and Pluto, this is the day that you're going to get the letter, the news, the conversation, the piece of mail. Like this is the day that it happens. And also we've got the moon in Scorpio this day. So it's not screwing around. It's going to be able to, I think, collectively bring facts to the table. We're going to probably see some kind of a scandal that's going to come about, especially relating to either government or government spending. I'm wholeheartedly expecting this to happen, especially because all three of these planets are conjunct and they're sextiling Neptune. So something has been hidden, something fuzzy, something where there's been some kind of distraction has been going on. And it looks to me like there can be an information drop or there can be something that is unveiled. Like I said, we're already in the retrograde shadow, so this one might be particularly active. The same day, Mars in Sagittarius forms a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. So I'm liking this, man. Mars in a sextile to Saturn. These are two of the badasses in astrology. So when you've got Mars working with Saturn, it kind of tempers the flames, but also it's Saturn giving Mars the green light. That's like, yes, you can move forward and start a riot. Sure, go ahead. That's what Mars in Sagittarius likes to do. In the days to follow, we will then see that Mars will conjunct the same degree as the eclipse point. So what we're really going to find most active, I think actually, is going to be when the moon moves into Sagittarius and conjuncts Mars. This will be on New Year's Eve, 2021. Okay. Last but not least, Mercury in Capricorn will be conjunct Pluto. So like I said, it's going to be forming, I think, the exact conjunction right around the 30th into the 31st. So guys, if you're going to be going and celebrating New Year's, if you're going to be somewhere, may not be the best idea to travel. Okay, you don't want to be traveling, going anywhere far. If you're going to be visiting family, get there first, stay there, and then leave after the new year. If you're going to be out in big public spaces, be aware of your surroundings, be careful. Moon-Mars conjunction on New Year's, I mean, I can't wait to do the astrology for 2022. I'm definitely going to look at the chart for the New Year's because that is going to be a Moon-Mars conjunction that's happening on the eve. So we'll still see the moon that's going to be in the same sign as Mars on New Year's Day. So that's the most important transits for December of 2021. Those of you guys who want to hear more about what's going to be happening into the new year, I just put this on my YouTube channel. It's up and it's ready to go, so you guys can save the link. I'm going to be live streaming the morning of New Year's Day. My intention is to hang out on the internet, talk to you guys about all of the most important aspects that 2022 has, all of the major planetary changes, what to expect for each and every one of the 12 signs. And yeah, we'll look at the New Year's Day chart and kind of see what is in store. So I look forward to doing that for you guys. It's going to be a donation-based show and it's going to be live. So if you want to hang out with me and do that if you're not too hungover, you can hang out with me on YouTube and you can drink champagne with me and celebrate the new year. Okay, so let's get into what I am expecting for each and every one of the 12 signs for the month of December. And yeah, if you guys want specifics, like where's the eclipse, where's the retrograde, all that stuff, just wait for the videos. I'm going to do them weekly. They will come out, don't worry. This is just a general overall prediction for your sun, moon, or rising. For my predictions, I would say look at the rising and the sun, followed by the moon, but each of them should apply to you. So let's see what the month has in store for Aries and Aries rising. Wheel of Fortune. This is great. This is the Sag eclipse for you. When the Wheel of Fortune comes up, it talks about the Wheel of Fate turning. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, right? Kind of like literally on the Wheel of Fortune, they spin it and you kind of wait to see where it lands. And this represents all of the fixed signs. So it is talking about something revolving around the Sagittarius eclipse that's forming, that's really probably going to show up closer to about February or May for you. But fate being in your favor, there being some lucky catch, some lucky opportunity. I think about an eclipse with Mercury in your 9th house where it's like, you know, suddenly you get tickets to something and then you're able to travel, or you get a lucky break and there's like a positive, you know, situation or outcome in a legal situation. Whatever is going on for you this month, it's basically saying it's helping you get back on track when it comes to luck. There is a lot of energy in Sagittarius, which mixes very well with your sign because it is a sister fire sign. And whatever it is, I feel like it's something that has been like long awaited, like you've been waiting a long time to get good news about something or to see something move forward, and it looks like it's going to. So very exciting for you, Aries. For Taurus and Taurus rising, what does December have in store for you? 5 of Cups. Why are you crying about stuff? Don't cry over spilled milk. Right? Just kidding. This is a card that I see where it's beyond the Four of Cups. It's like you've been sitting on something, there's disappointment, you don't understand, why has something not moved forward? And there is a need to pick yourself up and pull yourself out of a situation. Like, this is the card that is like the ending point, where it's like the friend grabs you and goes, you just can't complain about this anymore. You can't be sad about this anymore. You have to move forward. There is a lot of like supportive energy for you right now with all these planets that are moving through Capricorn, even in the midst of a retrograde. And it can feel like a crisis, because I think about like how this is the 9th house for you, and it deals a lot with coming out of Sag season, which has been losses or death, or having to cut ties with somebody, or feeling like you've lost something, or that you've lost momentum and you're kind of feeling down on yourself. But as planets move progressively into Capricorn, it gives you the opportunity to really connect with what you believe in. Taurus, so much of the next month is going to be about questioning your faith. If something hasn't been working, maybe it's time to shift your perspective. Maybe you need some fresh new mentor, somebody to come into your life, or maybe you need to drop into, you know, like a spiritual like group, or finding someone or something to help you reinstate your faith. Because that's all it really needs. That's all you really need with this card, is that you just need a little bit of faith. So remember, if you keep telling yourself the same story over and over, and this didn't work out, and that fell apart, and this isn't going the way I want it to, that's how things are going to go. So you have to pull yourself out of a funk that you've been in and really shift your perspective. And all you need is a little bit of faith. All right. So for Gemini and Gemini rising, certainly a lot of activity in your relationships this month. I think about your 7th house being highlighted, which can bring about big changes in a relationship. Some of you guys might be like, that's it, I'm done. You know, I want a clean slate. Like, we can't keep having the same issues. So we either need to start over and we need to add new tools to our relationship toolbox, or we got to go our separate ways. I also think a lot about planets then moving into your 8th house, which deals with like the aftermath of if you've left a relationship, how that feels, what you're severing, what you're separating, or if you're just getting into a relationship, the need to be acutely aware of being vulnerable and showing up and like and being your authentic self and not being afraid to merge, right? For you, I get the 8 of Coins, which is interesting because it can represent, if you are a Gemini, dealing with somebody like that, dealing with an earth sign or an older person, or even an investor or somebody who comes in to show support. This can be really positive in the midst of all the transits happening for you in your 8th house. That can be about paying something off, you finally getting a loan that goes through, you finally feeling like you're getting ahead, you're bringing in a bigger chunk. The King of Coins always deals with managing or mastering a financial situation. So if you're somebody who has been wanting to get ahead on something, you're going to. If you're looking to get a loan, or looking to have a payoff, or looking to get a large return, this can also be somebody who can help you with the process of that. All right. So for Cancer and Cancer rising, my, this is this month is going to be something else for you. So much action going on when it comes to your habits this month. It's really important to pay attention to what is and is not healthy for you. And I don't just mean your diet or your exercise. I mean all your habits, your mannerisms, right? How much time or energy you're giving to things and how it's actually affecting you emotionally or physically. You've got gangbusters of planets that's moving into your 7th house. So it is do or die time, literally, when it comes to partnerships and relationships. And you can be seeing a much more darker, sinister tendency in people in relationships. You can be finding that there's conflict that needs to be had, or you're getting to a point where it's like there are so many things happening either with like a business partner or somebody who you're close to, or a romantic partner, that you're like, I can't come back from this. Like, you've done things or you've said things that there's no coming back from, and they can be particularly painful. Now, I guess the saving grace in the midst of all of this is that you do have eclipses happening in your 6th house, which is insinuating the need to like get a clean start, learn healthier habits, get a hold of your schedule. So if you are in the midst of having relationship changes, it's like getting organized and sticking with a schedule regularly, or finding somebody to help you through the process of like moving through this is going to be really helpful. Like help can definitely show up. You can have lots of changes going on either at work or who you're working for. That's something else I would tell you between the eclipse and your 7th house transits. 5 of Swords. When somebody comes at you with some negative or hostile energy, it's important not to fight fire with fire. I can't tell you that enough, because I'm already hearing from a lot of my Cancer risings who are like crying the blues, telling me, you know, and then they said this, and then they did this, and they said this, and it's really painful. And the truth is that if you are having this experience right now, it's not your fault, but the 7th house is essentially showing you where if you're involved with somebody who is toxic and hurtful, they need to be cleared out, and that there is some kind of karma that you're working through and you're going to keep working through for the next 3 months when it comes to relationships. 5 of Swords is like laying your weapon down, not going toe to toe with somebody, not hurting somebody's feelings because they hurt yours, choosing not to have a bunch of conflict. If you just notice that you're in a relationship where you're pushing, and there's a lot of back and forth, then it can bring up a sense of you finally getting tired and being like, that's it, I'm not going to fight anymore. On the flip side, it can be about not fighting a situation. So if a partner wants to leave, if somebody wants to separate professionally, if somebody doesn't want to be friends anymore, you're not necessarily going to stop them and say, oh no, please, let's work it out. You're just going to let them go. So a lot of this is also acceptance, accepting that there's natural endings coming about in relationships with others and handling it in a graceful manner rather than fighting back and kicking and screaming, right? For Leo and Leo rising, let's see what December has in store for you. Certainly a colorful month between your 8th and your 9th house being activated. Excuse me, your 5th and your 8th house being activated. It's your 5th. High Priestess. So, okay, when I think about some of the stuff that's going on in your astrology right now, I think about like all of the energies moving through your 5th and your 6th house, and how that's like really putting a spotlight on probably and possibly not just your intuition, but your vision, right? Like what you feel is coming. Think about Venus going retrograde in Capricorn and how that's going to be essentially hanging out in your 6th house. And with Pluto being there, you might feel that there's a job change coming. You might feel that it's time to let go of a habit. You might feel that there is a need for you to clean something up, or that something is coming. Thankfully, it's going to help you anticipate whatever changes are going to be happening with your schedule. This can also be about you becoming more aware of like bad habits. And sometimes when the High Priestess comes up, this came up upright, but when it comes up reversed, it can be like learning to differentiate paranoia from your intuition. So that's something else I could see kind of going on. You've got eclipses going on in your 5th, which is super cool. That's really great for fun, romance, dating. There's going to be a lot of action going through there, possibly setting up holidays or planning trips and planning to go places. You might intuitively know, I can't be traveling around like this. It's going to create conflicts with my schedule and problems at work. So if you anticipate and you know this is coming, then you can proactively kind of rearrange some of your 5th house activities. Just your intuition is going to be pretty bang on. And I see this as you also learning to probably get into much more of like a regular state of either meditating or just paying more attention to what's going on in your intuition or even in your dreams. So that way you can kind of better navigate and probably deal with anxiety better, because I see like stress or accidents or anxiety being really heavily connected to the 6th house. All right. So for Virgo and Virgo rising, lots of activity in your 4th and your 5th house. I wonder, are you guys moving? Are you guys moving? Do you have family coming to stay with you? Are you traveling and going back home? Is there some kind of change in your home or rearranging your home? Is somebody moving in or out? And what's happening in your 5th house with like your love life? Like, are you starting to realize that maybe you're missing love or romance, or that you're ready to get back out there, that you want to reconnect with a hobby? Are you starting to feel like passion coming back for you at all? Is it making you emotional because maybe you miss having romance, or you're really yearning for a new way of self-expression, right? Tons of planets moving into your 5th house. Lots of Virgos may find that they're falling in love again. They're meeting somebody significant. They're saying, I love you. Some of you guys are also going to start talking about expanding your family and having kids. 2 of Swords tells me that you're a little hesitant, and it's almost like you're protecting your heart. Because when I think of the 4th to the 5th, it's like you getting trapped in like the repetitiveness of thinking about the past. And when you're doing that, you can be super indecisive, and it can actually delay or limit you from making a decision. Like when you have 2 of Swords coming up, it's basically saying that you're like, do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? And you're spending so much time going back and forth that you're going to miss your moment of opportunity. Okay, so if some of you guys are thinking about moving across the country because you met the love of your life, or you're questioning whether or not it's smart to move back home or anything like that, there's something about these themes that are coming up, and you don't want to take too long to think about it because the window of opportunity is closing. You may be at a fork in the road right now in your life. You might realize that your life can go either one way or it can go another way, and they're going to be very, very, very different. There's a lot of contrast in the 2 directions that you can go in. Don't spend too long thinking about it. If you need help, talking to somebody, getting insight, somebody who can help you make a better decision, give you a little bit of information or give you a sense of direction so you don't feel like you're just blindly making a choice, okay? Because this can bring you a lot of anxiety. For Libra and Libra rising, you got a lot of energy going on in your 3rd and your 4th houses. Eclipse is happening in your 3rd, gets you focused on your ideas, how you communicate, what you think. Intuitively, I feel like for Libra and Libra risings, a couple things can happen. One is you could be thinking about moving or rearranging your home space. 2 is that there can be changes in where you're going to be celebrating the holidays and changes in travel plans. Libra and Libra rising, you want to watch out for conflicts with siblings, conflicts with neighbors, things pertaining to issues with vehicles, because I could see vehicles pertaining to the 3rd or the 4th house. So especially if you're going to be road tripping or driving anywhere, just be really careful and be mindful that these energies are very active in your chart. And you're learning how to communicate in a way that is not so emotionally reactive. Like there's a lot under construction in your home zone right now. So it's going to take a little time to address family dynamics, especially if you feel like you've been at odds with somebody in the family or somebody who you're living with. The devil. So, I mean, Capricorn's your 4th house. So this makes me wonder, are you learning to let go of negative thought patterns, which are then manifesting in your daily life or affecting people in your home? Are you feeling stuck or limited or burdened by a certain way of living or even a certain person? I mean, Capricorn's your 4th, so I wonder, are you dealing with a Capricorn, or is there somebody that's kind of just making you feel like you're never going to break free from their hold, right? There can be somebody who has that kind of a hold on you, or it can be old emotional patterns of coldness. Many Libras are realizing that there's been a lot going on with them emotionally within the family that has kind of made them a little bit more detached, and they're realizing that this is limiting them being able to move forward in all regards, emotionally and home and family wise. So there is a need to break free from these habits and free from these patterns, even if it's just negative emotional or negative self-talk, right? All right, so we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Lots of activity happening for you, revolving around communication, money, contracts, investments, money in, money out. Pay attention to your vehicles. Pay attention to how you're thinking. Some of you Scorpio risings have gotten caught this year with using some tones or communicating in a way that is not as nice as it could be, because you have Pluto in your 3rd house, and it can be intense exchanges that you're having with siblings, or intense exchanges that you're having just in terms of how you communicate and get your point across, right? And so in a way, there's almost like a softening that can happen, I think, with the Venus retrograde for you in how you express and share your ideas. I think that you're going to see perhaps maybe, especially if you have work that's online, or you're involved in teaching or writing or making videos or anything like that, you're going to see an uptick in things getting bigger or getting more traction, especially if you're more aware of how you communicate and your target audience, right? The card that I get for you is the Page of Coins. So to me, it seems like for Scorpios, you have an idea and you're like, I want to sell this, or I want to package this, or I want to create courses for this, or I want to write this. And it's the very beginning, it's a seed, but it's an idea that you have for being able to share with other people that can be lucrative. So I would not launch this month. Hear me on this. Don't launch this. December's the month to work through it, get it out on paper. Be leaning more towards like end of February going into March for a launch date. I think that it needs a little bit more time for you to rework your actual structure and how you're going to sell it, or how you're going to get it out there, or what you're willing to invest into it first. But it does look like you have a really great lucrative beginning of an idea. All right. So for Sag and Sag rising, my, you've got a South Node eclipse in your sign. You've got a lot of activity in your second. I could see where, for starters, for you guys, there's still kind of like, as with all the eclipses, there's been a bit of an identity crisis in looking at what you've lost or what you've let go, depending on where Sag is in your chart. And maybe not quite wholeheartedly identifying with the person that you are. A lot of you Sagittarius have been going through it. There's been lots of changes for you guys in the last year and a half. I feel like overall though, a new moon is positive, especially with Mercury. So you want to be aware of like what you're saying, how you're communicating, what you're thinking, what you're writing, positive self-talk, manifestations, mantras, goal, intention settings. These are all really important around the time of the eclipse for you. And I feel like there's a complete restructuring in your second house revolving around your self-esteem and what your values are and what you believe in and what you invest in. And a lot of you guys, especially who work for yourselves, may find that you don't feel like you're quite building yourself up enough and you're not receiving enough. Remember, you're only going to receive what you feel like you're worth. So if you feel like you're exhausted, you're working too much, you're putting in a lot of effort, you're not getting a lot in return, it's a time to be like looking at raising your prices, asking for more, also looking at your spending and your budgeting. There's going to be huge changes going on in that department for you the next 3 months. The way that you spend money and what you spend money on, and whether it's beauty and aesthetic stuff, or it's like, you know, you going out to eat and the food that you're buying. There's a complete reworking of sorts that's going to go on with your resources, and it's really important to pay attention to how you're spending money and supporting yourself in a way that may not be necessarily in a physical, tangible way. Two of Swords. So similar to, I don't know who it was. Maybe I think was it Virgo? Maybe it was Virgo. Similar to that, another mutable sign who's also going through changes, and it's like, do I do this or do I do that? I see this more as you being like, do I still attach my ego or my beliefs to an old way of thinking? Like you can still be falling into the traps of who you used to be, how you used to behave, how you used to live your life, what you used to believe in. And so there's going to be some themes that are going to come up over this next month that's about you still letting go. We've had the Sun conjunct the South Node. We've already had Mercury conjunct the South Node. Now we've got Mars. So when Mars ultimately does move into Sag, it's really important for you to finally cut those old behaviors, let things go. Be mindful of your body. Your body is going to be more sensitive. You may feel a little bit more aggressive than usual with Mars in your sign. But on the flip side, it's also going to allow you to feel empowered and to be focused on yourself. So I think that Mars is going to help you make decisions and move more quickly, to be honest with you. And don't feel like, don't deceive yourself. Because I get this feeling that with Sagittarius, they're going to like have like a lesson that's going to come up where they have the possibility of falling back into old patterns, and they need to really go, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doubting anything. This is the plan. And you have to have like your blinders on and just like stick to the program, you know? For Cap and Cap rising, well, this is your show. Having, you know, Venus retrograde in your sign and having eclipses happening for you in your 12th, I want you to pay attention to your intuition. I want you to pay attention and make sure you're not overworking. I know I said this to you recently, but I'm going to keep telling you. With a bunch of planets in your first house and you've got stuff that's still moving through your 12th, like this is that natural kind of clearing right before your birthday. But thankfully, I think the second half of the month, it's like Stella's going to get her groove back where, you know, the sun and Mercury and Venus all in your sign. You're bringing more attention to you. You're moving around in a much more Venusian way. You're really feeling yourself. A lot of you guys are going to want to completely rework your image, how you dress, how you look, how you carry yourself. Maybe you're looking for like much more of like a mature kind of polished look. Allow yourself to move through the changes the next couple of weeks and months before you really wholeheartedly invest. Like take your time, right? Capricorn, Saturn, it's about taking your time. It's about aging gracefully. I've seen a lot of Cap risings recently who, interestingly enough, are like opting to wear less makeup, stop doing Botox, you know, let their hair go gray. And I love that so much, especially with the conjunction between Venus and Pluto, because it's showing us that real age can be beautiful. Like really coming into the aging process can be really beautiful. And in a way, many Capricorns age in reverse anyway, because it takes them much longer to show their age, unless you're a Cap rising, I guess. But like a natal Venus in Capricorn, or I would say like a Cap moon or some Capricorn suns, they always have this natural sense of maturity for their whole life. And once they finally do get into like their later years, they don't really seem all that different. They don't get kind of old and grouchy. Maybe they've kind of been that for a period of time. I say that with a Cap stellium, okay? So don't make any big cosmetic changes. Like I don't want to see you guys, you know, going under the knife, getting plastic surgery, anything like that in the next month or two. There is something really awesome and really beautiful about looking at the aging process and asking yourself if you're doing it gracefully, how you're loving yourself, and letting go of any anxieties that are potentially affecting your body. So rest, recuperation, possibly going on holiday with all those planets in Sag in your 12th is really, really a good idea. Six of Swords. So this is about being in transition. I think about Venus ruling your natal 5th and your 10th. And this can be about being in limbo. So whether you're feeling like you're getting ready to move, or you're getting ready to travel, or you're getting ready to experience a big life change. This can also be about feeling like you don't know where things are going to land. If Venus is the ruler of your 10th and it's going retrograde in your 1st, you can be going from, being married to being single, working for one company to being your own boss. So there's a limbo period where you're like, well, what do I do in the in-between? What do I do with myself? This does suggest that you're going on to like a much more peaceful, harmonious, happy place. But needless to say, you may be a little uncomfortable because you're not quite there yet. In terms of the physical body, it can be talking about progress. So if you're somebody who's been weightlifting, or if you're somebody who's been focusing on losing weight, or gaining muscle, or wanting to see effects of treatments on the physical body, it's going to take time. So be patient. Allow it to take up to 6 weeks to go through this transition. Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Lots and lots of activity happening for you in your 11th and 12th house. So I'm liking the energy revolving around networking, spending time with friends. It seems like a very social month on one hand. But on the other hand, planets moving into your 12th and going retrograde makes me wonder, are you being asked to go and socialize with people in other places? Are you being asked to spend the end of the year with people in other countries or even in other cities? Is there a sense of needing to show up and socialize and network, but you're kind of feeling like you're torn between that and like staying at home and sleeping in and keeping to yourself? There's some sense of conflicting energies. I really like for Aquarius rising, though, that it can give you the opportunity to get more rest and recuperation if need be, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I would say that it can be an extended period where you're seeing that there's just more opportunities for you to travel, get a little bit more of like a reset, and also get closer to finding inner peace and solitude, like being able to perhaps actually go to a retreat, focus on meditation, reflect, get more rest. You can feel very restless because you're going to have quite a few planets there, December, January, hanging out in your 12th house. So things are naturally coming to a close. Cycles, maybe even jobs or anything pertaining to like older relatives. You want to watch for older relatives that need more care or perhaps are having to go into care facilities. Three of Wands. So it's talking about your vision and that you're really excited about where you're going, or that you're going on an adventure, or that you're beginning something new. So on one hand, it can represent actual travel and the process of like getting there and taking your time to get to places and really enjoying the view and like the whole process of like actually being able to travel. On the other hand, it can be talking about you going deeper in terms of exploration in the 12th house. So somebody who wants to take a meditation course, take a tarot course, somebody who wants to learn more about astral travel or lucid dreaming or any of these things can become really, really, really prominent for the next couple of weeks ahead. And last but not least, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. Lots of activity with an eclipse in your career zone. And followed by also quite a few changes in your 11th house. One thing I would say is like an eclipse in your 10th house is awesome. It's setting you up for big changes in your career or setting goals revolving around how you want to be seen in the world. You are one of the signs where you're going to get a lot more recognition for your work in the next year. Between this eclipse and Jupiter moving back into your sign, you're taking center stage. It's all about you right now. The one thing I would say is that a Venus retrograde and a ton of planets in your 11th can insinuate that your goals are changing in some way. There's like a major reevaluation that you're doing of your friendships. There can be a falling out with a friendship, but there can be somebody from the past who comes back who wants to offer you kind of like an olive branch, and they want to like rehash whatever issues that you had and possibly be able to heal that. I like that Capricorn works very well with your ascendant, and I feel like there can be a sense of you being more sensitive or more, I think less judgmental and more accepting of whoever comes back into your life socially, and like you can be a little bit more forgiving, right? And that forgiveness is going to go a long way. Especially if it's somebody who you've been friends with for a while and you miss them, or on the flip side, it can be about you feeling like you need to connect with a specific group of people and they may aid you in some way in like really coming into your goals or your destiny. So it's the other way that it can play out. Nine of Cups. The wish card. So about a wish being granted. It's about getting everything you want. The yes card, the green light, especially the 11th house is wishes. Like perhaps maybe a friend helps fulfill a wish and connect you with an organization that's going to really give you an uptick in your career or give you more exposure, or joining a professional association that's going to give you that recognition that you're looking for. So yeah, with an eclipse in the 11th house, I love wishes. With an eclipse in the 10th house and action in the 11th house, I love the idea of like wishes. So for the eclipse, maybe like write a wish down, put a crystal on it, fold it up, hide it somewhere, read it in 6 months, or do anything revolving around wish granting, because it looks like it's going to do very well for you. All right, guys, hopefully it's a really awesome December. I cannot wait to read some of the comments and see how it plays out for you guys. I'm really stoked. So be sure to let me know. Hit the like, comment, share button below, and make sure you smash the bell button so you get all of the alerts when my videos come out throughout this month, because I'm going to have probably a couple more extra than usual. I'm taking the second half of the month off just to create content and also get ready for my live show that I'm going to talk all about the astrology of 2022. Next week, on Saturday, most likely, we're going to be doing live tarot readings. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. If you're a level 3 subscriber, you can be one of the first on my list to ask me a question. That's the benefit of being a subscriber for my channel. There's 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. 3 being supporting the channel, getting a shout out, and you're going to get 1 question answered from me during one of my live shows that I have weekly. So please consider joining my subscriptions. It's going to make it possible for me to take a couple weeks off and create more content for you guys about all of these extra little events that are happening astrologically. There's a new Midheaven podcast that's coming out, so make sure you check that out. It's a Christmas special. It's kind of silly, but whatever. I love it. It's with myself and Mike, the Peace Stealer, so make sure you check that channel out as well. My 2022 booking is open, so I've got spots that are open in January now. So if you want to check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com, you can get on my calendar, you can see my availability, and book a New Year's reading with me. New announcement, and this has come after several weeks of many people asking me about this. I am actually in the process of working on putting together an outline and getting everything ready to start a study group. So let me know if that's something that you would be interested in. I know I've had probably a dozen or two people who have asked me. So it's my intentions to create what's going to be a subscription at some point in the new year and start meeting with people regularly and doing a study group and helping teach astrology and helping other people better understand astrology through transits or natal aspects, and give more insight to those of you guys who want to learn about how I read. Join me for New Year's for my donation-based live stream. I'm super stoked, so make sure you put it on your calendars. I cannot wait. I am putting all of that stuff together and hopefully do a rather lengthy presentation and stream with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please have a very happy and healthy December, holidays, and New Year's. I can't wait to see you guys at the end of this month or the beginning of next month to talk all about the astrology for January. So with that said, I will let you guys go, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.